Today, we are diving into the lyrics of a powerful band, Fever 333. Before Fever 333 existed, I listened to Let Live, the band where Fever's vocalist Jason Butler used to be in. I got the chance to see Let Live play with Enter Shikari in 2011, 13 years ago. Oh boy. And Jason's energy was just unmatched. Later on, I saw Fever for the first time at Rockin' Park, still with the same energy. And the second time opening for Enter Shikari once again. This show was amazing, probably the best I've ever been to. And before those two bands, Blackout Problems also played. What I love about those three bands is that they write about important society topics. They use their platforms to relay important messages. Fever 323's music speaks directly to the struggles of minorities, particularly people of color. And I think it's great when artists use their platform not just for entertainment, but also for education and awareness. However, this is something I can speak for just from an ally lens. I would love to bring this topic to the podcast, but I think it will be more relevant to have someone directly affected and who can speak of their experience. And I hope I can do that very soon, because the goal of this podcast is to be as inclusive as possible, so that as many people can relate to it and find a safe space into the cave. But in their song Am I Here, Fever 333 says something that resonated with me. Now I know how to fall in love when I can love myself. So let's talk about loving yourself. It's something we hear about a lot now, and honestly, it's important. But if I'm being real, 10 years ago, I would have thought self love was just another word for being arrogant. Like, oh, you love yourself. You must think you're better than everyone else. But that's not it, not at all. Loving yourself is about knowing your worth. It's about not letting other people's insecurities or bad behavior tear you down. It's like having this inner strength that says, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm good enough. And you know what? That's a hard place to go to for a lot of us. I'm not saying it's easy. We are so used to being harsh on ourselves, to picking apart everything we think is wrong with us. And a lot of that comes from how we've been treated in the past, whether by our parents, friends, or partners. The way people have talked to us or treated us ends up shaping how we see ourselves. But here's the thing, self love doesn't mean you have to be flawless. It's like how you love your family or friends. They're not perfect, but you love them anyway, right? So why wouldn't you give yourself that same grace? You deserve it just as much as anyone else does. You're with yourself 24/7, so you better learn to like that person. Now, what happens if you don't love yourself, but you still fall into a relationship? Can that even work? And I think it can for sure. But it can get tricky and depend a lot on the other person. Without that foundation of self love, you're more likely to fall into certain traps, like staying in a relationship that's not good for you because you think you don't deserve better, or falling for things like love bombing. You know, it's this thing when someone showers you with affection and praise, but in a way that is not honest, not genuine. They might be inconsistent in their actions, but when they see you pulling away, they flood you with love to reel you back in. And when you don't love yourself, it's easy to fall for that because you don't see yourself as lovable. So when someone shows you love, you know you hold on to it real hard. There is this quote by Lauren Eden in her book Lioness Awakens that hits pretty hard. It is, when you're not fed love on a silver spoon, you learn to lick it off nice. It's like if you've never been given love unconditionally, you start settling for any bit of it, even when it's mixed with pain. When you don't have self love, you might start believing that it's the only kind of love you can get. But here's the thing, you deserve way more than that. And the only way to truly see that is to start loving yourself. That self love acts as a filter. So when someone's not treating you right, you can say, nope, this isn't it. This is not for me. I don't need it. You know, the song The Medic by Foxing has a line that reminds me of this too. It goes, you always smell like cigarettes, and there's always whiskey on your breath, but you're the best that I can do. That line speaks volumes. It's that feeling of, yeah, this isn't great, but It's the best I can do, at least it's love. But that's not true. When you don't love yourself, it's easy to think that you cannot do better. But you can. You just don't realize it yet and are afraid that you might not find love ever again. And at this point, is it even love? Also, sometimes you can be in a relationship where you both love each other. None of you are toxic, but it just doesn't work. Sometimes love is not enough and you just don't have the same values, dynamics, or way of living. It can be from the beginning or as you grow up. And loving yourself is also being able to step away from the relationship. And just a disclaimer, I feel like in a lot of my episodes, I talk about how you should stop a relationship. And of course, they are not easy and you need to work for them. But it is also important to realize when it is too late, but at the same time, so hard to do it. So please don't blame me for your breakups. I am a big fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. If you don't know it, it's a show where drag queens compete to be elected the queen of the season. At the end of each episode, RuPaul, the host, always says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Now, don't get me wrong, I love Drag Race, and that line hits, but I actually don't fully agree with it. I think you can love someone, even if you don't fully love yourself. But the health of that relationship, well, that's another story. It all depends on how the other person treats you and whether they take advantage of the fact that you might not have that self love in place. It's a tricky balance. And actually, in the French version of Drag Race, in the end, the host, here it's Nikki Doll, says, aimez-vous comme vous êtes et la vie sera toujours une fête, which translates to love yourself the way you are and life will always be a party. And that, to me, hits the nail on the head. Loving yourself isn't about being perfect or invincible. It's about accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all, and just living life more freely. When you love yourself, you can be your authentic self, and that's when life starts feeling a little lighter, like more of a celebration. It's not about being the life of the party, but finding joy in just being you. This is also how you will attract people who will like you for who you really are. And also, I like the fact that it's not just about someone else. You have to love yourself for you first. Now let's go back to the original line. Now I know how to fall in love when I can't love myself. Because falling in love and being in a relationship are two different things. Falling in love, especially when you don't love yourself, can be scary. You might think, I don't deserve this, or they are going to see the real me and run. And that fear can lead to pushing people away or not letting anyone in at all. It's like a defense mechanism because if you don't let anyone close, they cannot hurt you, right? And then there's that whole idea of self sabotage. You know, when you are in a relationship and it's actually going well, but because you don't love yourself, you're convinced something's gonna go wrong. So you start looking for problems and eventually you push the other person away. It's like if you don't feel worthy of love, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's that old cliche, but that I think is true. Hurt people hurt people. When you're carrying around a lot of pain or insecurities, it's so easy to project that onto others. I actually think this is why some people cheat because they are not comfortable with who they are not comfortable with themselves, and yeah, they don't love themselves and they don't feel like they are lovable. And so, as soon as they find any type of affection they can find, they grab it because they don't realize that they have it at home. In no way I am excusing it because there is no excuse to it. Some people don't love themselves and yet they don't cheat because they are aware of others people's feelings. And also this is a reminder to show you that when you've been cheated on, it's never your fault. It's the other person's fault because they haven't worked on themselves yet. And actually I hope for them and for other people that they will at some point and get this confidence and stop projecting on other people. So yeah, I guess there can be a lot of different reasons, but I think this is one of the main ones. But you can still fall in love even when you're struggling to love yourself. It's just a different kind of journey. Maybe the other person can help show you what you can see in yourself yet. And that's okay, we're all a work in progress. So, as we come to the end of this episode, I want to leave you with some questions to reflect on. How do you think your own self love or lack of it affects the relationships in your life? Have there been moments where you've stayed in something that wasn't right because you didn't feel like you deserved better? Or maybe you've pushed someone away because you were scared of getting hurt? And how about falling in love? Do you think it's possible to truly open up to someone else if you haven't yet learned to accept yourself? What would it look like to start working on that self love while still being in a relationship? Or maybe it's about finding love alongside that journey rather than waiting until you feel complete. Think about what loving yourself really means for you. Is it something you have put off because it seems too hard? Or maybe something you're actively working on right now? Wherever you are on that journey, just remember it's okay to take your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. If any of this resonated with you, I hope it helps you see that learning to love yourself isn't a switch you just flip, it's a process. If you liked the episode, please leave a review and follow me on Instagram at Into the Cave Pod. You can also share with me what lyrics you relate to the most. I would love to hear those. I will see you again next week with new hard-hitting lyrics. Be kind to yourself. Bye!